Welcome back to But Why Though Reviews. And today we're heading over to Barbie Land and we're reviewing Greta Gerwig's Barbie. I am Kate and I'm here with Jason.
Hello, let's go party.
And we are actually, yeah, me and Jason are in charge for crafting the beautiful, beautiful content you see over on But Why Though for TV and film. We curate it. Our writers do the work. We sometimes do the work too. And today we're going to tell you why everybody should go buy a pink shirt, I guess. Actually, yeah, I need more pink shirts. The only one I have is this one, and it has a Bucky on it. So
This is also pink if you can't tell in the video. It's a little more pink in real life, but it is they like didn't sell cheap bright pink shirts at Target when I went to buy one this weekend. So this was as pink as I was able to get on short notice.
Okay, so to start off, did you have any expectations going into Barbie?
Not really, because I've been trying really hard to like not watch a lot of trailers these days. I saw the very first one, however long ago it was. I actually remember when this was first like picked up and announced in like trades a while ago. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. And then like ceased to even consider. I started getting a little worried as it was getting closer that like, oh, maybe they're like marketing this too hard because it's not actually that going to be good or something.
Yeah.
All I really knew is that it was like not going to be what we expected it to be, but also because we kind of started to not expect it to be what we expected, that we would expect it to be something else. So that's kind of all like the only way I can describe it. But yeah.
Yeah, I've been hyped for this movie. Um Mainly because of the concept. I'm not a fan of a lot. Well, I am always intrigued by adapting IP from a medium to a new medium. I think it's an interesting way to tell stories. I watch a lot of them from Japan, I watch a lot of them Korea. And for this, I was extra intrigued because you're not adapting a story, you're adapting a toy. And that's a fun concept to play around with. And with as many Barbies as they had in the initial lineup, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting at the very least.
Yeah.
I used to not be the biggest Greta Gerwig fan, but she's kind of won me over. She's kind of won me over, not just with this, but with Little Women. And I rewatched Lady Bird outside of the awards hype because it was just annoying to me because of the awards hype. And you know what? Lady Bird slaps a little. Shout out to Ricardo if you're
Yeah.
watching this because you made me rewatch that.
I did also rewatch Lady Bird and watched Little Women last week in preparation. And I'd never seen Little Women. I was like floored. I was like, oh my gosh, wait, this is incredible.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had
So
certainly
I've
already
seen like
liked
seven out of the nine adaptations of Little Women. So I went in and I was like, this isn't going
mm.
to be the same. But she made me like characters that I hated. Like it was good work. Good work, Greta. Um,
Yeah, I mean the bomb back of it all too,
yeah.
co-writer of the movie. I did watch every Noah Baumbach movie earlier this year and went on a real journey with his work. And I think this stands very far outside of his normal universe, but so
They're a
I didn't come
power
in with
couple, aren't
expectations
they?
around his writing, but like, yeah, like they're a both writing and romantic couple partnership. And like, I know that you can like mark in Noah's work when they got together and when his writing started to evolve because he had women in his life like editing his work over his shoulder. But so I think it's an interesting moment of like the other way around where she's directing and he co-wrote this time. But yeah.
So getting into Barbie, I was gonna do our usual synopsis, but I feel like it's very hard to make a synopsis for Barbie. A Barbie
Yeah.
goes from Barbie land to the real world because feelings and then comes back to Barbie Land. That's the only synopsis I'm going to give you because I feel like this should be relatively spoiler free. I think we can touch on light stuff, but Jason, what do you think this really weird blockbuster? Like it's a blockbuster, but it's like I feel weird calling it a blockbuster because of how weird it
Right.
is.
Well, it's so
What worked
different
for
than
you?
anything we've really seen recently either. Like
Yeah.
I think that is the biggest part about work, is that like it is definitely a very different approach, different movie than anything, not just an IP
Yeah.
movie making, but just generally, like just in the style and the approach, in the willingness to be so over the top and so like meta in its depiction and its direction, but also
Yeah.
like knowing that it's doing that, it's using that to also be sincere at the same time. Like I was constantly floored by its like its ability to do both.
Yeah, it hits like this really weird space where it is extremely explicit in what it is doing, and somehow it's not ham-fisted. Like it's actually
Right.
nuanced. Like I think it was interesting to see Greta take on camp visually in especially in Barbie Land, which I think all of the visual gags and the absurdity of it all was so well attended to, from all of the props in the house, which they are in a Barbie dream house. Like they
Yeah.
all the little, like the pools don't work. The like
Right.
nothing comes out
It's
of their milk
incredible.
cartons. Like, but they all, like the acting that you get and the buy-in from the actors in this film is amazing to actually sell those little pieces. And I think that it's what you said, it's that sincerity and the absurdity that I think like just hits really hard. And I am usually somebody, especially because I've gotten really tired with the way that writing about feminism and writing about some of the complexities of it in a world has been tackled recently in media. Like She-Hulk, like just made me angry and I turned it off and I did not finish it.
Yeah.
Um, where, or even Captain Marvel, for me, it was one of those where like you keep hitting on the same point over and over, but it felt more like just talking at an audience versus bringing an audience through a journey and a story to understand the perspectives of the characters. And I feel like with Barbie, like really surprisingly, this vibrant neon pink, like film that could be a monstrosity of girl power is actually an extremely nuanced take about how we, not just how society views us, but how we view ourselves. And I left it and I was like, wow, wow, how did I get
Right.
this?
Like I think it's the fact that it is so over the top from the beginning, and so it like obviously being extreme about the way that it's describing feminism, the way that it's describing all sorts of things, that like you can't help but be very pointed towards we're not being serious right now when
Exactly.
it starts, so that by the time it starts getting to the more sincere aspects of what it's trying to say about feminism, about masculinity and so forth, that like even when like there's a moments towards the end where it does start to get maybe a little more cheesy, a little more like you like you're disarmed by it, because you know that it's not a sense like that. I almost said it's not a sincere movie, but it is, but like it isn't at the same time. So
Yeah.
when it does those things, I'm not bothered by it, because I'm like, yeah, this movie is just over the top. So of course, this grand speech is also going to be over the top, even though it's supposed to be, and it is one of the most like a sincere moment. And
Yeah.
so it's really impressive how it manages to do that.
Or even like in like the movie's finale when Barbie and Ken have that very specific conversation that is like really funny and really over the top, but it's actually really sad at the same
Yeah.
time too. Like
I
I
cried
think
several times watching this movie. Like
like
we all know, if you read anything I write, that I cried everything, but like
yes.
why should I cry watching the Barbie movie? Like but I did multiple times.
And I think that like I wouldn't say I had a tear brought to my eye, but I think that I didn't expect this movie to make me feel so many things, and not just like feelings of the moment, like feelings of recognizing what the film was doing, but actually connecting like my own like Barbie history with it too.
Right.
Because I threw out my Barbies when I was like in 5th grade. Because like at that point, like I was a tomboy. I played sports. I was really chunky, like nothing going for me where girls didn't like me, but boys were totally cool to like read comics with me and play comic and play soccer. And so like I did that hard pivot where I started to shun everything that was feminine. I got rid of all my Barbies. I hated the color pink, which you probably don't know if you're watching this video from all the pink that I have on in the screen. Um, it was a very it was very weird watching it because I felt the in in America, Ferrera's character and her daughter, I could see myself in that where like you have to be hard, and in order to be hard, you have to shun everything else, and you have to hide pieces of yourself. And then I remember like I actually got back into liking the color pink because I played Halo as a pink Spartan and it made guys mad that a pink Spartan killed them. And then I just, oh, we're going to do pink all the way then. And so now everything I have is pink. But I love Barbie. Like I've come full circle back to where I was and accepting that you don't have to be everything for everyone, and that's when you start tripping up and like hurting yourself in the process. And I didn't expect to come into this movie and walk away feeling that. There's a
That's
speech.
exactly what this movie's about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
which is
it
like
is it
incredible.
was
How did it do it?
I don't get it because like you have like all of these through lines where it's talking about femininity, it's talking about masculinity, it's talking about patriarchy, it's talking about all like the buzzwords and all and actually giving them weight and how it's being enacted and how people are feeling under it, both from a Ken perspective and a Barbie perspective. But I think one of the things that it really does is it tells a story about a toy at the same time. And there is a speech that America's character gives to Margot Robbie's Barbie, who is stereotypical Barbie, um, where she kind of outlines what being a woman is like. And I remember when I was in my Barbie hating phase, I was very much like, this is bad beauty standard. This is a bad, like all of those things, which can be true. But then also, like, oh, you're actually putting all of these feminine check boxes that have to be hit onto a doll too, and that's actually like a weird space to be in. I didn't think that movie was gonna give that to me. Like I'm in an
Yeah.
existential crisis because I did not expect to feel anything deep. I thought like, yeah, let's go party Barbie, like this is gonna be great. And I was just sitting there in the seat like, oh
Yeah.
god.
Well, there's certainly another conversation that happens later than that, even where that's where really I was like having like just really like putting a cap on that part of the movie. Um, I will my there are some threads that I don't think got fully sewn off for me. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
we're ready
Yeah,
to
we can
go
go
that
into the
way yet.
things that can do
Yeah.
better, of course.
Yeah. I think that all that part of it got ended completely. There to me the masculinity conversation that the movie was having the whole way through was really good and had lots of really great moments and um it to me that's the part that just didn't quite have a bow at the end,
Mm.
the way that the rest of the movie like very
Did
clearly
it
was
feel like
trying to say
just
like
Ken?
this is the end. No, like there's a really perfect costume that Gosling's Ken is wearing at the end that I was like, I'm buying that as soon as I can. That like I feel like that piece of it, but there was I can't I feel like I can't say the exact line that Gosling says at one point to Barbie, pretty early in the movie, honestly, too. But that describes the to me, it was starting to dive at this idea of how like perhaps a part of why we find ourselves now in a time where we have this, for a lack of a better way to put it, crisis of masculinity, where like men just don't know how to be men in so many different ways that are not great for men, not great for society as a whole. And it starts to ask questions about like where did feminism fail men
Mm-hmm.
in a way like that, asked it in like a positive, really interesting way, but it
Yeah.
didn't answer the question for me, where I feel like it answered every other question that it posed the whole movie long. And that part, maybe I was just reading into it and that wasn't the intention of the line there, but there was just a specific line that
Yeah.
Gosling has that made me go, oh my gosh, what a
Yeah, I think
really
it's at first like when
salient
they
point here.
yeah, when they first go into the Barbie into the real world, there's a part of it where I was like, oh, like this is because I think that there has been feminism as is a theory that has developed over time. Like there are multiple waves of feminism, and each one picks up more people. If you think about it, like a rising tide picking up more boats each iteration and development and growth that it goes through. I think that there have always been large misses, specifically when it comes to queer women, when it comes to women of color, especially. And you can see that in the early movements. And I think now one of the things that we're reckoning with is like for a long time, we've said like feminism isn't just good for women, it is actually good for
Right.
everybody. And I think what the film starts to do, and I agree, it doesn't necessarily follow it through to the end, is it does take feminism to like I would say like maybe second wave like this like what does extreme women control everything look like, but also it looks at itself and it's like well maybe like the end goal shouldn't be that the end goal is equity in a way, but it never really looks at an equitable solution in the narrative so much as it just
Right.
reframes it back towards its initial point, which is let's talk about women, which is fine and important. But if they
Right.
open the door, it's kind of like
It
if you
doesn't
open the
detract from what
door,
else it does.
exactly.
I wish that it just had that one extra bit there. Cause yeah, exactly. There's an incredible song and dance number at the end with the Kens that like I love, and I love
It's
how
so
it
good.
concludes itself, but then it doesn't take the last step that the rest of the movie got to and all of its other points to like cap off that piece of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like if what could we be doing to make sure that our our men are also like being uplifted in healthy and positive ways with good role modelship that clearly is lacking in our society right now.
Yeah.
But the other piece that dovetails with too, I mentioned in our written review on budwhytho.net is about how I feel like the movie really lacked in overt queer representation that
Mm-hmm.
like is a really big and important part of Barbiedom also. Like the queer men that grew up playing with Barbies and the way that that was an important aspect of their like growing up. But even beyond that, like real world side of it, just there there were a lot of moments where I'm watching and I'm like, that was the moment where I feel like they maybe wanted to add that Ken was actually meant for that other
Yeah.
Ken, or the whole Alan of it all, and like how he has the same clothes as Ken, but like not actually just letting there be like overt queer text there.
Yeah.
Um, so again, not like wasn't something that there was anything wrong that happened, but something that I was like, I felt like I was being triggered to expect that should be a
Yeah.
piece of what was going on and just never saw it.
Yeah. And I forget his name, but he's playing the doctor now. He's in there as one of the Kens, and he's a queer actor. And it is one of
Right.
those where like there are little hints that are put. And when you have like a
Right.
really
I
high
did Google it
profile
and
queer
he's never
actor,
technically like declared his own sexuality, but
uh
he plays a really popular gay
queer
character on
character. Yeah.
TV and like
Yeah.
is the most flamboyant of the Kens. And yet he has one of the most heteronormative lines in the entire movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Why? Like I were we afraid of China or did we just not think of it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
and I think that like part of that too goes down to like the issue of like making something for everyone. And I think like there is some stuff where I would rather them not include it than do it badly. But they at least they tried to check boxes in a way where they would drop a hint, you know what I mean? Versus
yeah,
yeah, which shows like, oh, we knew that was there, which it can come off weird in some points. And I think especially when like I think like the biggest person who represents Barbie in like a professional standpoint now, as in like their persona and everything that they do, that I can think of as the drag queen Trixie Mattel, who literally had an HGTV show called Trixie Motel, where she revamps an entire motel in like California into like neon Barbie pink colors. So like it is one of
Right.
those things is like when that is like the person who has literally used Barbie as the backbone of everything that they are, it feels kind of like a miss to not include those pieces.
Right. And there was, I'm pretty sure there was a trans Barbie and like
There
awesome,
was.
but that's still
Yes.
not, that's important. And all the Barbies were like representative of a lot of different, corners of womandom. It's still not the same as having overt queer text in the movie.
Yeah.
But I will say, you mentioned something to the like of how a lot of times, big tentpole blockbustery movies tend to have this issue of having to be for everyone. And I was really excited by the fact that this was not a movie for everyone. This
Yeah.
was a movie like as age demographic wise. Like this is a
Yes.
PG-13 movie
Yes.
with a lot of lewd humor and a lot of like, no, this is not for kids. Like, don't
Yep.
bring your 7-year-old to this movie. Like,
Yep.
unless you are really like cool with explaining to them certain jokes, which I mean, power to you should, frankly, but that's aside the point. Like
Yeah.
this movie did not like fall into that often trap of we have to make this movie for kids and adults. It was very much this is for adults who
Yep.
used to play with Barbies, not for
Yep.
kids who play with them right now. And
Yep.
that's
I
awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I took away from it is that it wasn't for children, it was for parents and their kid. And very specifically that, because it was telling a history between two generations of like what Barbie means in an older generation's mind versus a younger generation's mind and bridging the gap
Right.
between it. At least
Half of
that's
my
how I
screening were
saw
in
it.
their at least 60s, probably.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the important things. And I think that that really was solidified for me as in this is a mother-daughter movie in a lot of ways because of the line you have at the very end, and I'm gonna say it, and I'm not gonna tell you who says it, but it almost made me cry of like mothers stand still so their daughters can see how far they've gone. And I was just like, oh my God,
Mhm.
that now I'm tearing up. Like that was a really
Hey, you
powerful
gave me
line.
chills just saying it again. Yeah. It's
Like it's
like,
a very powerful
yeah,
line. And I think that
incredible.
it's one of those things that like as you kind of expand that to what it means to make change in the world, not with your children but also with what you leave behind, a lot of it is everybody is a reference point for somebody else. And I thought that was really well handled and gave me way like I ended up writing on like a piece of paper to put it in my like purse before I left so I could write a feature because like this is amazing.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And again, it only really works because the movie is so over the top that when it pulls out those moments that would be too
it has
cheesy anywhere
weight.
else, that you're like, yeah, it it does it.
Yeah. So I mean, finally, do you think people should see Barbie? Like, do you think they should just put on some pink and head to the theater?
100%. I don't I know full well this movie is not for everyone. Like I was texting my family group chat about it earlier today, and my dad was like, well, I like this movie. I was like, maybe when it's on streaming you should check it out because I think you'll be entertained by certain parts of it, but I don't think it's going to click for you. But I think that although like 100% it's a great movie. It's I described it as like a masterwork within the context of what this movie is and can and the limits of what it can be as an IP, film,
Yeah.
but it is fully unique as an IP type of movie. It is just great unto itself.
Yeah.
All of the acting, all of the like the set designs, the costuming, the music. Oh my god, the
I think that
music, like everything is just great.
this is some of the best set designs that I've seen in a film in forever. Like, because it's
Yeah,
all practical, like it's all built and maneuvered. And like, I am not all practical, obviously, but like, there's so much detail put into making it a tactile experience from like every perspective that, like, it's
right.
beautiful.
Like I keep an ongoing list on Letterboxd of my like movies that I would nominate for Oscars and which ones. And I would say that I pretty much this goes in every technical category, sound design, the costuming,
Best
the
original song,
that
please.
yeah, best original song by a landslide. Directing, adapted screenplay. I'm I love every bit of the acting from everyone, basically. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'd say that I would nominate those categories, but like their Gosling is incredible. Um, Margot Robbie's great. Issa Rae was my favorite of the other Barbies personally, but they're all great.
Yeah, I really liked oh my gosh, what's her name? Weird Barbie. Kate McKinnon.
Uh, yeah,
Oh, I loved her. And I
yeah,
usually
she's
don't
great.
like her in things. I really don't, and I don't know why.
Right.
But I loved her here. And I also think like the biggest of shout outs to America, like this is Margot's movie, but like America does a lot of work. And I think to have a Latina represented in Barbie's history as somebody who is playing with her, because I think a lot of the
Oh
times like
yeah,
it is really easy to we had Teresa was like the ethnically ambiguous and like version of Barbie that we got. But to see that kind of represented and it a part of Barbie history, I think is really important because we tend to not think of that um as somebody who is playing with Barbie. The same way that we have stereotypical Barbie, we also have stereotypical Barbie players, or like owners, however you want to call
yeah,
it. And I think that this movie did really well to push back on that.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
go watch it.
it's Robbie's movie, but it's Robbie's movie, but I mean, Ferrer is the soul of it completely. Like
Yeah.
it's go watch it. I'm
Oh
taking all
yeah.
my friends to see it again this weekend, no doubt.
Awesome. Well, Jason, where can people find you?
uh, you can find me all over, but why though? If you're brave enough to be on socials, I'm at flatter underscore you. It's FLATTER_YOU. And
And speaking of
yeah,
queer films, you're
go.
covering Outfest right now. So if you do want to
I
look
am
at
covering
films that are
Outfest.
explicitly queer, look at his reviews.
Yeah, we've got a few so far, and definitely a good bunch more coming down the way.
And you can find me on Twitter and threads at Oh My Myth Randier. And you can find us both at butwhytho.net. And if you want to hit us up, head over to butwhytho.pc to talk with us on the social thing. If it's around for however long it's around. Yeah, thanks for listening. Like and
Let's
subscribe.
go party.
I don't